Yeah, okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Kerrville Planning and Zoning Commission to order. And Dorothy, would you give a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Bob Waller,
Here.
Garrett Harmon, Don Barnett,
Here.
Doyle Malone, Bill Morgan, Michael Siegerman,
Here.
Rustin Zuber,
Here.
Glenn Andrew.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum present. First item on the agenda, Visitor Citizens Forum. Any person with business not scheduled on the agenda is encouraged to briefly speak their ideas to the commission. Please fill out a speaker request form, give it to the commission secretary prior to the meeting. The number of speakers will be limited to the first 10, each speaker limited to 3 minutes. No formal action can be taken on these items, as the Open Meetings Act requires formal action items to be posted on agenda no later than 72 hours before the meeting. If formal action is required, the items will be placed on an agenda for a future meeting. Item number 2 is the consent agenda. All items listed below in the consent agenda are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be acted on with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item or items will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Item 2A is approval of the minutes from October 6th, 2016 meeting. It's on page 2 of your package. I'd like to make a comment under call to order. Just a small exception. It shows Commissioner Harmon called the meeting to order. That should be Commissioner Waller. And on 4A of those minutes, I believe that public hearing and action with the replat was withdrawn at the request of the applicant. If there are no other changes, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. And we have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Same sign. Passes 4-0. Okay, number 3 for consideration and action. Item number 3A, consideration and action for amending a plat. Trent?
Yes, sir. This is located at 3544, 3548, 3552 LaCumbria Drive East. They're amending plat. This is an amending plat for lots 11, 12, and 13. Comanche Trace Phase 4, Section 1. The proposal does meet all of the requirements and guidelines in accordance with Article 10-4 of the City of Kerrville Subdivision Ordinance. Staff does recommend approval.
Okay, one question
Yes, sir.
I had on there real quick under the legal description. I'm not seeing how lot 43 fits into this. There's a reference to lot number 43.
That is a error.
Okay.
On staff report.
Thank you.
Typo.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's 11, 12, 13.
Okay, we don't call for there's no reason for a hearing here.
No, sir.
Okay. Any comments?
It's just taking 3 lots and turning them into 2, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the change as requested.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Same sign. Passes 4-0. 3B, consideration and action on a variance request. Trent?
Yes, this is a 2 separate variance requests from the City of Kerrville subdivision ordinance, Article 10-4-3, the minimum design standards for approximate 225.739 acre tract. Generally, variances go before the Zoning Board of Adjustment, but as the Planning and Zoning Commission, you have purview over the subdivision ordinance variances, and this is why this is coming to you. Subdivision ordinance, a variance from the subdivision ordinance does not require a public hearing in accordance to our code, and yeah, so they're first seeking a 2 feet variance from the 50 feet street right-of-way width for a minor residential street to allow for the 30 feet minimum pavement width from back to curb to be reduced to 28 feet. And the second variance is an 808 feet variance from the 600 feet cul-de-sac length requirement to allow up to 1,408 feet cul-de-sac lengths. The first variance, they're basically asking, the pavement width won't change from what is required in our code. They're basically asking for this variance in order to change it from a standard curb and gutter to a ribbon. And that's the sole reason. A ribbon curb, from my understanding, is it takes 12 inches for each one. A typical standard curb and gutter takes 2 feet. And so that's what they're asking to request. Staff does feel and that we couldn't find hardship regarding the need for reduced feet. Usually the curb and gutter, the type of curb and gutter is addressed during the drainage, during the civil stage and the drainage portion of the project. But at this time, we couldn't find a hardship for why this should be reduced, this requirement be reduced. Now with the cul-de-sac length, once again, we could find that there were no exceptional circumstances that exist on the subject property. The property size, shape, and topography are similar to surrounding areas. Although the portions of the property have greater elevations with steep topography, staff feels the minimum design requirements can be met, and the hardships are self-imposed through the development design. Additionally, staff believes that staff believes that the proposed variances could have an impact on the proposed development and surrounding properties. The proposed variance for the cul-de-sac length extension is more than twice the length of what our subdivision code minimum requirement or maximum requirement is. Staff is concerned about the egress in case of an emergency in traffic flow. Additionally, the proposed variance decrease the right-of-way width. Once again, is to allow that different type of curb system, which at this point in the development stage we don't feel deems any sort of hardship. Now, we do recommend denial of the 2 feet variance from the 50 feet street right-of-way width for a minor residential street to allow for the 30 feet minimum pavement width from back of curb to back to curb to be reduced to 28 feet, and denial of the 808 feet variance from the 600 feet cul-de-sac length requirement to allow up to 1,408 feet cul-de-sac length. And now staff does encourage the commission, when you do make your motion, to be very clear on what your motion is for each item, and to make sure you state your findings of fact if you so choose to approve this. And we weren't required to put this in, send out notices to any property owners within 200 feet. We were also not required by city code to put this in the newspaper. However, the requirement was for the applicant to send us letters of their request as part of the application process. I did include those letters as part of your packet. Hopefully you had a chance to read over those letters, and in those letters they depicted what they felt their hardships were. As you can see on the PowerPoint screen, the first one is showing their street layout system of where that decrease in right-of-way width will be located.
So the intention here is to get larger lots, is really what the
Right,
intention is.
they want large.
The depth of the lots would be affected by that 2 feet.
From my understanding, that's probably a better question for the applicant, for one of the applicants or representatives who are here today. And the cul-de-sac length, from what they wrote in their letters and from what we've talked to them about, is to avoid the topography, how steep the topography gets from connecting from one cul-de-sac to another cul-de-sac, if I'm not mistaken. But they're also here to answer any questions. We also have the city engineer as well. here to answer any questions.
Okay.
Okay. This package in its entirety, I read the 2 letters from M&S Engineering. And I've taken into consideration the denial from staff. I'd be open to hearing, first of all, from our city engineer.
Yes, sir.
Would you bring us up to speed on your thoughts on this and pros or cons as to this proposed development?
As far as the street variance, as I mentioned to Trent, it's really just a variance on the curb. We're still going to have the adequate pavement width, still the 26-foot pavement width. So really, for us, as a variance on that, it's more of a design standard, which we can address later on. And from what I gathered, it's more of a feasibility for access to their lots instead of restrictions for driveways or anything like that. So that the reason we denied that is based solely off the fact that we can handle that in design. The 26-foot asphalt is still going to stay the same. What they're proposing is just an alternate curb, which we can do. And Trent, help me out. I think the code specifically says alternate designs for curb can be addressed during design. Is that right? Right. Okay. So that's why that was mentioned. As far as the cul-de-sac length, part of the concern is from the fire marshal, ingress and egress in and out, but for the 1,400 feet. Additionally, I think he's probably going to have concerns on the slope coming down. If you look, let's see, what's the best way to explain that? The north to south road coming into those cul-de-sacs, that's going to be pretty steep as it is. And discussing this with the fire marshal, we kind of looked at this as if that's going to meet grade, everything else would, or they would need to possibly provide an alternate design. We don't feel it feasible as the best layout and possibilities for, again, ingress and egress for emergency vehicles.
The way is wide enough for emergency vehicles as well as cars being parked on the side of the road?
It is our city standard width. We have an ordinance for no double parking. So as long as it adheres to the ordinance, then yes. But how often does that actually occur when you're getting out there and somebody, if you have somebody parked on the right-hand side, traffic's going to be going on the left and a truck coming in. It's one of the issues.
It's
right.
pretty tight.
Whereas if they have an alternate ingress and egress out from their houses, and really these 2 cul-de-sacs that we're showing are the only concerns that have really been addressed on this. It actually starts on the road that connects us to north and south. I think was his probably bigger concern.
Are you talking about the change in elevation there, or?
He had a few comments. For us, we're just looking at the length.
The length of the cul-de-sac that we're showing.
Right, and so, utility standpoint, we would find a way to loop the water and sewer. That's kind of a separate issue that really doesn't concern what this variance is for, but it's mainly for emergency access, in and out.
Kyle, it's only those 2 bottom cul-de-sacs, is that right? Those are the 2 in question?
Yes, that's the 2 that are on the variance. That's really the only 2 technical cul-de-sacs. The other is a connecting street. And one thing that we've addressed, and I think they have shown on here, they do have access to Highway 16 up on the northern part of the property, but nothing on the south. So kind of a bottlenecking issue. Should something happen, if we had a fire or something that got out of hand, we have really one point for that whole 2/3 of the bottom portion of that track.
How many lots are on there? I haven't counted these lots. How many lots are here?
136?
So
Is that what I'm seeing? Yeah.
60 plus are down the south end of this thing.
Yes, sir. Probably more than that.
It looks like a lot.
Yeah, it's actually it's 156.
Would TxDOT be open to creating an access to 16 there on that end? Do we know?
Did we have any
does the
comments from
developer
TxDOT
know?
on that? This had come to DRC earlier as just a preliminary site plan, and TxDOT was in attendance. I don't know if they had mentioned anything.
They didn't send us official comment.
Did we didn't have comments?
So
Okay,
it's
so
all-
we don't have any comments for TxDOT regarding that.
The sole reason for the variance, which is a pretty substantial variance in the cul-de-sac
Right.
code, is strictly for the design of the property and the lots. No other reason whatsoever. It's just, I guess, maximization of lots down there.
That would be a better question for the applicant. If we can get
Feel
him
free
up
to-
at Mike.
Howdy, I'm Lance Klein with M&S Engineering. To answer your question, we felt like this was a good utilization of the property, given the lot sizes that the developer was considering to build. In order to do that, we were concerned about tying in those two longer cul-de-sacs back up into the connector streets in order to make a through street. We were concerned about those slopes for emergency access for fire and EMS.
So this is the best layout based on the elevation changes on this property, at this end of the property.
As far as we've prepared right now, yes, sir. I mean, there's always,
Now, is it the
variability.
best layout, or does it maximize the number of lots?
In the developer's mind, it maximizes the number of lots, yes, sir.
But it could be modified to shrink the size of that cul-de-sac street?
Sure, it's possible, yes, sir. Yes, sir. If we, one thing, if we keep this current configuration and those two cul-de-sacs that are highlighted there in gray, if we were to shrink those or reduce the length to 600 feet, it puts it right in the middle of a low spot or a drainage way for those two particular instances there. So that was one reason why we extended it. That was another consideration there for not cutting it at the 600 feet. That would create a cul-de-sac or a turnaround in that low spot, or in a, for lack of a better term, a creek bed or a drainage way. That
That's
wouldn't
on both
be.
of those extensions? There's two low spots on both of those extensions? Of those
Yes, sir. Right.
At about 600-foot point?
Right around 600 feet, yes, sir.
I mean, it'd be a substantial amount of lots down there with a minimal amount of access in and out for especially emergency vehicles.
Right. And that's one thing we have, like the staff has mentioned at the committee meeting, TxDOT was there, and we had met with them prior to that meeting as well. And they are amenable to granting a temporary access for emergency vehicles if we felt like we needed to, or if recommendations from the city required that secondary access. It would be a temporary access along, probably off of that most western cul-de-sac to 16, and they would grant us a temporary entrance just for emergency vehicles only.
When you say a temporary access. explain
Well,
what
that's
you-
what TxDOT called it, a temporary access. It would not be a public access. It would be emergency vehicle only is a better way to term it. Right. Right. So it would have a normal drive off of 16, no enhanced, no signage,
So you'd only
no,
lose probably one lot here,
potentially, right.
and you would have that only emergency for that. And then-
Emergency only, it'd have a Knox box on it to where, the residents couldn't get in there. They would have to come off the main drive.
And that's the lot I wanted, that one right there.
That's the same, that's right.
Let me ask you, what about the depth of these lots? There was a reference made in there that they're deep enough you didn't, I guess, anticipate a lot of on-street parking?
Right. Typically in a 1+ acre, setting, you don't see a lot of on-street parking because folks typically will build further to the back and have longer driveways. So if they do have an event or, company comes over, folks can park on their drive and stay off the street.
Is that the size of these lots, all approximately 1 acre?
Yes, sir. We have a few up closer to the north there that are around half acre.
But all these in the south end are 1 acre lots.
Correct, between 1 to 2, right.
Well, that's better for parking, because street parking, when you have small lots,
Right, yes,
is
sir.
a real problem.
It is.
On these 30-foot streets.
Right, and again, we're not proposing to shrink the street width at all. It's a variance request for the curbs
It's
is
a
what
curb
we're.
effect.
And if that can be handled through design, that would be great. But we were given guidance that we needed to.
Well, if they're
to
1 acre
pursue
lots,
this
you've
here.
really got room here to take another foot if you needed to or so,
Another foot
Into
for.
the lot.
into the lot.
Right.
You're not gonna really impede the lot that much if it's an acre lot.
I mean, it kind of depends on what someone's preference is, because I've seen as many 1 acre lots with houses built closer to the front.
Sure.
With a large backyard where people have a lot of privacy.
Right,
So,
right.
It's a good point.
And
What about subdivision rules that would prohibit street parking?
The city doesn't look at that, doesn't look at restricted deeds and covenants as enforceable. So it's outside of our hands. That would be a matter between the property owner and the residents.
HOA, they form an HOA.
There's no way we can enforce
Yeah,
those
that's-
restricted deeds and covenants.
Deeds and
And-
restrictions are usually HOA stuff.
And just a reminder, I mean, this 26-foot street width is your typical detail, or typical pavement width. So if you, on those smaller lots, that's already a design standard, you know. So if on-street parking is a problem on those, then certainly we would have, you know, that same geometry on these.
Yeah.
Are they asking for a waiver on those sidewalks?
They have submitted a waiver
Huh?
for the sidewalk requirements. Yes, sir.
Yes,
That has to come to the council then, right?
That goes to the engineer. The engineer makes a decision. If the engineer denies the request, they appeal it to city council.
Okay.
So you might see it, you might not see it, just depending on what the city engineer decides.
Now, with the ribbon curbs, how does that affect drainage as opposed to gutters, curbs and gutters?
right. For, when we use a ribbon curb, we'd be using right ditches in the right-of-ways, so bar ditches.
Just bar ditches?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bar ditches and cross culverts would be used to get the water off the street, off the lots, and down to our drainage structures.
So you want it to look more like the country? Kind of?
I'm sorry?
You want it to look more like it's out in the country
Right,
as opposed to being right there
correct,
where it is?
correct.
Does the city have any problem with that?
With it looking like the
With
country,
bar ditches versus gutters and curbs?
it's going to all deal with the drainage and how that's being affected. But that's a question for the city engineer. He'll be able to answer more accurately.
Is there anybody here from the developer that would like to talk? Go ahead
Well, real
first.
quick, theoretically, there is no issues. Basically, what we look at, as long as they control the drainage, whether it's underground drainage within the street as a city policy is, or in bar ditches as they're proposing, that's really just a design standard that we'll analyze. As long as it does not have any impedance on textile right-of-way or adjacent properties, that's really what we look at. The way they control it on their site is really up to them in design.
Okay, thank you.
so as far as the 2-foot variance goes, staff recommends denying the variance, and you feel that can be addressed in design?
Yes, for the ribbon curb?
Yes.
Yes, we have in our specifications, we allow alternate curb designs to be brought, during design. So as you mentioned, we'll still have the 26-foot pavement width, which is the city standard, and they're not asking to change that. What they're asking to change is just from the 2-foot curb and gutter to 12-inch.
But what you're saying, that can be addressed without a variance?
Right.
They'll still be
That's correct.
required to have the minimum right-of-way width.
Uh-huh.
Just they're asking for a different kind of curb and gutter.
So if that's a design approval, process, why do we have to?
They're asking for a decrease in the width of the right-of-way. We don't feel there's a hardship in the width, in decreasing the width, right-of-way width. We think that we just don't find a reason why that variance is required. What they're asking is basically for it to go, instead of 50 feet wide, to be 48 feet wide. We're still requiring the 50 feet wide. Even if we allow the ribbon curb, there'll still be a 50-foot easement there.
In other words, if they're gonna do it, what they want 48 feet gutter to gutter?
No, it's going to be 48 feet. The right-of-way, the whole entire right-of-way width will be what their proposal was 48 feet wide.
Right.
And the entire curb from back of curb to back to curb would have been 28 feet.
So what they're looking for is a reduction in using the ribbon curve.
Right. But once again,
They can use the ribbon curve.
within that
either
50 feet, they
way,
can still
as long
do
as
it,
the
right.
50-foot right-of-way is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I see now.
If I could clarify that a little bit, we're not asking for a reduction in right-of-way either. We're still, our typical detail on there still shows 50 feet. So we're just asking for that 2-foot variance, which we thought we needed to apply for the curbs.
Right.
So
It's a curb question,
it's a curb question, right?
type of curb.
So no
Type
matter
of
what
curve.
type of curve you use, the right-of-way is gonna be 50 feet.
Correct.
we're fine with that.
Oh, it's
Correct.
only a design issue, basically.
Sounds
I
like it.
think I mean,
That's reasonable.
it is, but I mean, the way the thing is, the variance is written, makes it look like they want to reduce it.
Right. When they request, well, how the subdivision ordinance is written, they have to request a 2-foot variance from the overall width of the right-of-way of how the ordinance is written. And so that's why we did 2 feet from the entire width of the right-of-way. We did send this to the applicant to review the request to make sure that was accurate how we wrote it. They did confirm, but if they're fine with the 50-foot right-of-way width, you can just go ahead and deny the request, and that's that for that portion. I mean, the cul-de-sac will still be up to you to decide.
Right.
Okay, so then the curve really is not an issue.
No, that's going to be discussed later during the civils.
Okay, but if we deny that request, then
You'll just stick to
it
it.
doesn't impede the development.
From what it sounds like, no, they'll be fine from what they're saying.
Is that your thoughts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think the issue then seems to be on the cul-de-sac length. Have you talked to TxDOT?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Are they amenable to having an emergency entrance on that side of the subdivision?
They are. Yes, sir.
What process has to go with that?
For that driveway, it would be just a standard driveway permit process. So there wouldn't be any, it would be like a residential type driveway process. Since there would be no major improvements, it wouldn't be a commercial concrete drive.
Just through TxDOT?
Just through
Okay.
TxDOT, right, right.
Anybody else like to make any comments?
I have a question again.
Yes.
I mean, the cul-de-sac variance is extremely substantial.
Yes, sir.
And the fire marshal had comments as far as, I mean, forget about the fact that there's a permanent safety vehicle access way. It still looks like to me it presents a pretty substantial problem for them with the length of these cul-de-sacs. Getting in is not a problem, getting out is a major problem.
Right.
And
Those are some staff's concerns, as I stated in the staff recommendation, that we are concerned about the egress and traffic flow for those lanes, especially due to being more than twice what is.
right.
But are you concerned about the access for 9/11 vehicles or access for just the vehicular
I'm
traffic
more,
out there?
when I wrote the staff recommendation and analysis, it's more concerned for emergency vehicles getting in there in a quickly manner, or people exiting out in case something were to occur. So that was our analysis was.
Is the basis for the 600-foot cul-de-sac ordinance, is that the reason for it, for ingress and egress of
I would
vehicles
assume,
and private citizens?
I would assume back in the day when they wrote the subdivision ordinance, it was something along those lines, but I couldn't confirm why they wrote the ordinance the way they did. It would make sense to me looking at it.
Well, under emergency situation, you could open that gate on the 16.
If that's not going to,
That'll allow those people out of that situation right there.
I think the biggest thing is getting from here to here.
Yeah, that's about 30 houses.
That's like twice the,
But there are streets in Kerrville now that are that length.
Probably so. I haven't.
There are. I live on one.
We live on one.
It's a problem.
it's
I think our
cul-de-sac
cul-de-sac's longer
street
than,
that's that long.
It is.
longer than that.
I do. I think it's longer.
Really, you talk about 1,400 some feet, but that doesn't include, you have access from this other cul-de-sac coming across it. Is that
You
correct?
got merging cul-de-sacs here.
Right.
Much.
So you got
One,
60 or
two,
70,
4.
60 or plus
So why do they,
residents.
so you're saying just one side of this is 1,400 or the whole, both sides?
It would be the one side, I believe, is
The,
what you guys
the
measured.
longest one.
It's the one
Yes,
on,
the longest
on
one
the
on the
right
right.
On
side.
this,
1,500.
it's the one on the right.
Okay,
And the one on the left is how long?
It's probably
about 1,000.
just about
About
1,000.
900 to 1,000
Right.
feet.
And that too is, needs a variance, doesn't it?
Yep.
For the cul-de-sac length? Yes, sir.
But we're only asking about one variance here.
They're asking for the entire project for the cul-de-sac variance. If they wanted to, if you wanted to really get down to the minute detail for which cul-de-sac, they would have had to provide meets and bounds for that specific area. And that, I mean, generally with these types of variances, we would generally not recommend doing that unless, I mean, they're more than welcome to go back and do meets and bounds and request variance for that specific area. That's getting pretty minute in the detail, especially during this early in the stage of development.
So in essence, if you grant this variance, they could go anywhere in this development and
Yes,
put a
sir.
1,400-foot cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you have the same problem with the main road coming off of 16. That's just a long cul-de-sac. Is that right?
No,
No,
because
sir.
it
That-
goes
that's-
off.
Well, it's split, but you still have a problem when you get down to the end with the same issue with traffic that we're talking about on these others, except it's longer.
Right, there's no maximum length on streets though.
No, that's a street.
Right, it's
You
a
can
it's a
come in
through
and out
street,
three
so.
different ways, here, coming in here, coming in here, going out here. It's down in here. There's, in order to get out of here, you have to go all the way back up here.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is getting in here and then trying to get out here.
I don't have so much a concern over the emergency vehicles. They have a cul-de-sac turnaround space that's adequate.
And they'll be required to meet the maximum or the minimum requirements for the cul-de-sac turnaround length for fire trucks, etc.
And these do.
Right.
These do
So
meet that.
I mean, they're not requesting any sort of variance for that. So
Any comments from the commissioners?
You need two separate motions or one?
that'd be best to be just be clear in your motions.
Hey, we need, I guess, a motion for the,
There's no public hearing required. They can open it up if they would like.
are there any comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
Name is Harvey Brinkman, and I live at 306 River Hill. I'm 233 feet and a half and several inches, I guess, from the property. But I'm for the I'm for a subdivision. I mean, that land's been sitting there since I moved in that house in '83, so I am for it. I know that the two issues you have and the things that I'd like to address don't have anything to do with this meeting, but I would like for M&S to, just get with the people that live in that area if they would. They can come to my house if they want, but I live on a cul-de-sac, not a cul-de-sac in a way, I live on a circle now, one of those famous River Hill circles. I won't give you the name of what I think of it, but I do believe that there's definitely ways to work this out, and that's y'all's problem, not mine. I am for the subdivision, and Mr. Myers here lives next to it, what's getting ready to happen, but he did not get notice, he says, on this. And I know that's somewhat of an issue when you have one of these public hearings, but the two items y'all have today don't really address anything else. And but we are here to help. We're not here to hinder the process. We definitely want to see the subdivision done. If you look, I guess Comanche Trace has probably had the last subdivision change or an add-on. It's gone on in Kerrville in quite a while, so definitely want to see something happen to the area.
Well, what's your recommendations? What are you concerned about, Harvey?
That's a long road, Don, in and out.
Give me the short version. Two or three items.
I know that the terrain, I used to walk that property, and I kind of know the area back this way or on the south end, where they got that issue. I think Mr. Keeble needs to give them more land so they can get a better exit. It's my take. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but that would be my take. It gives Keeble an access out also to his, and it'd give them an outlet out this way. And I know because of that turn on 16, I don't know where Robert would be Robert Keeble would be in reference to anything like that. That turn makes it dangerous for even the fire trucks.
I was thinking that earlier.
And it's a steep hill. If you, from what I remember,
The south end of this property.
Yes, sir.
It's
Yeah.
Very steep.
And I just think that if you had anything else, it ought to come from Keeble as an emergency exit or whatever you want to call it, gravel road for the fire trucks, emergency vehicles versus what they're looking at. The curb thing, I like the ribbon curb. I wish we had it now in Riverhill. But I really like it out of Comanche. It really looks nice and clean.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnie.
Tom may have something he wants to throw at you.
Be real short. My name is Tom Myers. I'm an adjacent landowner. My property butts on the northeast side with this subdivision. I'm not against the subdivision either. I think it's probably a good project for the county, the city. I do like it vacant back there. It's like having an 800-acre park behind my property if you go on to Robert's side. I do have a concern. There's a real sharp hill that comes down. I've got a vacant lot that butts it, and there's a pretty good bit of water that comes down, and I assume later the engineering aspects of where that water is going to go to. I don't know if it'll destroy the value of my lot, and I know that's not the issue today, but I'm not against the project. As far as the variances go, it looks to me, it's y'all's call, that the whole subdivision is really a cul-de-sac. There's only one way in, and everything there is tied into the one deal, and it doesn't matter to me. I'm just commenting that that's the situation.
So I got one more question, Trent.
Yes, sir.
This is a proposed subdivision.
Yes, sir.
None of this is approved.
No, sir.
So a lot of this stuff can be dealt with in the design phase.
We would hope so, yes.
Okay.
Commissioners, I know you're probably about to make a motion of one way or the other. I just want to remind you that when you do make your motion, that if you read my staff report, in the bold, I put some statements in bold. That's straight from the subdivision ordinance. Those are what you're supposed to find your findings of fact when you approve a variance. And it's very important that for a quasi-judicial decision, when you're approving a variance, you base it off of the findings of fact, or if you're denying a variance, you're basing off of those findings. You don't need to stay with what staff wrote. This is up to you. I know not too many variances come to you as a planning and zoning commission, so I just wanted to give you a friendly reminder about what we would recommend is base your decision off those findings of fact. And once again, I'm saying what the subdivision ordinance says, not my words on that. And I put each statement in bold. So.
Okay, this is a two-part request. Do we have a motion just on the curb issue.
I'll make a motion to deny the 2-foot variance.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Question? Trent, again,
Yes.
does a motion to deny the variance, does it need to be tied to one of these statements, or? I'm unclear, you were telling us we needed to,
I would probably suggest something that you find in there.
I mean, I agree, I think maybe it should be amended. There are no special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved in the strict application of provision of the ordinance, which would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of this land. What I would add to that motion, if I was recommending.
There's no findings of fact on it, right? That's what you're saying? There's none of
Well,
those?
his first
No, what
statement-
I'm saying, if you read the under criteria for review, it says in accordance to the City of Kerrville subdivision ordinance, Article 10-4-3, minimum design standards, variances shall not be granted unless the city planning and zoning commission finds one or more of the following. And then in 1 through 6, I bolded the actual statements that come straight from the ordinance to kind of help you when you make a motion either
What this
way.
does is this helps the applicant understand why they were denied.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's what the language should
Okay,
say.
so,
So basically, it doesn't meet any.
right,
Of those
I make a
exceptions.
motion to deny because it does not meet one of these 6 requirements.
Is that specific enough?
You need to pick
I'll
one
leave
of
that
them.
up to you.
How about any of
I'd probably recommend be more
I
specific.
think I'd pick number
Broad
1.
statement here. I would make a motion that there are no special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved, that the strict application of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of this land. Therefore, I make a motion that variance be denied. I think that's the way I would,
Based off the first one.
yes.
I think that's accurate.
All right. So moved.
Hey, I have a motion. Did you get all that, Dorothy? Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. 4-0, oh, it was denied. The second part of this request has to do with the cul-de-sac length. And that cul-de-sac length request is to cover this whole proposed subdivision, not any one particular street, as I understand it. Yeah, do I have a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to deny the cul-de-sac variance because there are no special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved, that the strict application of these provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of this land.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second on that motion? I have a second. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. All opposed? Same sign. It's denied 4-0. Staff reports.
Oh, we don't have anything today. Just be prepared for more meetings in the future.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
No, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.